welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I need $500!
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Bubble Boy, which came out in 2001, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Jake Gyllenhaal's character, Jimmy Livingston, who has been born without any immunity system. He lives at home with his mum and dad and has been kept in a clean room in his bedroom pretty much all of his life. He falls in love with his next door neighbour Chloe and finds out that she's going to get married to her boyfriend Mark at the weekend. So he decides to leave the safety of his bedroom and travel the world so he can tell Chloe exactly how he feels.
Before we jump straight into the movie, I want to talk about the inspirational story which actually sparked the idea for this film.
Yeah.
Back in the late 70s, a child was born, David Vetter, who was born without immunities.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as he was born, he was literally put into a bubble within like 12 seconds of being born, where he would actually spend the rest of his life. And it is a very tragic story. I think in 1984, he tragically passed away. NASA actually at one point even built him a sort of small spacesuit so that he could actually leave his bubble and walk around in another protective bubble outside of his house.
And
it is a very moving story about this child's struggle to live, especially existing almost like a lab rat. This actually inspired the 1976 story, which was made for television, starring John Travolta, called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, which did not play this tragedy for laughs, but actually played it very straight-laced, and is quite a heartfelt, warming movie for its time. Which brings us to 2001 with the release of Bubble Boy. The mother of the child actually tried to get people to boycott this movie, knowing that it was going to be insulting to anyone that actually had to deal with this horrible illness, which thankfully today has pretty much been eradicated.
I was very surprised reading up on the notes for this, that obviously this film had a prequel, I suppose, with John Travolta in the 70s. And I can kind of understand the mum's viewpoint of, you know, it's kind of personal to her. But then at the same time, I mean, this film does play a lot for laughs. It is a massive comedy, but done in a nice way, I suppose. You know, with the fact that Jake Gyllenhaal, we know now, is a fucking phenomenal actor. I find it very hard to not want to watch his films. He's brilliant. And in this film, he does play such a really inexperienced child who has been, you know, closed off from the world. So when he goes out and experiences all this stuff for the first time, I can't help but laugh, because I feel, well, if I was trapped inside a bubble, you know, and I went outside and saw grass for the first time, how would I react? You know, the way that his reactions are to his next door neighbor, and the fact that he is in love, you know, he is going to do everything, even risk his own life, to get the girl.
Well, I'm going to straight away question whether he's fallen in love or not, considering all that Chloe did was give him his first erection.
Over the next few years, I washed my window a lot. Something was happening to me, but I didn't know what.
And this is now love, obviously.
Well, I mean, you know, it's that thing, isn't it? The only other woman he's come in contact with is his mother, who is very overprotective. She's quite religious, you know, she loves America and all that kind of stuff.
She's played fantastically by Swoosie Kurtz.
Swoosie Kurtz. And, you know, it probably can apply to a lot of us, that when you are just with your mother all the time, you are going to rebel. You are going to fall in love with the first girl that you see who gives you an erection, because, well, your mother doesn't do that. So you're kind of, you know, wait. But it's also the dynamic that him and Chloe has. Yes, okay, she gives him an erection. No, I'm going to try and get past that. But it's one of my favourite scenes, is the way he starts bashing it with a baseball bat to get it to go down. And the way that Chloe comes in and realizes that, you know, he's not a monster like he's been portrayed by his friends, and that the only thing that he's got wrong with him is the fact that he can't leave this bubble. So she tries to adapt her life to him. You know, that one scene where they're sunbathing in the window, you know? And it's just like, she's taking the time to not hang out with her friends, to hang with Jimmy. And I suppose that's how the love actually builds.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Wouldn't it be nice if we were older, then we wouldn't have to wait so long? And wouldn't it be nice to live together in the kind of world where we belong?
So yeah, you know, we get a lot of montages pretty much at the beginning here establishing this blossoming relationship.
Yeah.
And we soon realize that, yeah, Jimmy sort of has the mental age of like an 8-year-old, obviously living in this protective, overly protective environment, especially with his mum sort of teaching them these stories about going outside, about the dangers of women, and about the sanctity of religion.
Well, not just that. She teaches him the fact that Christopher Columbus came to America and all the Indians moved away peacefully to reservations to open casinos. What the fuck? You know?
And I had the best teacher in the whole wide world.
And then the Indians decided to move to the reservations, where they could open casinos and sell tax-free cigarettes, and stay out of the white man's way.
Another A+.
It has to be said now that Swoosie Kurtz definitely steals a lot of the humour in this film, which is quite a surprise considering her sort of usual straight-faced, everyday woman in her other American sitcoms.
Obviously, on top of that as well, you've got John Carroll Lynch playing Jimmy's dad, and for most of the film, the dad will not say a word because the mother is, you know, overbearing. She's protective.
She's over controlling.
Yeah, she controls them, controls every aspect of their lives, and you can just sometimes see the weakness in his face. Like at one point, I always think he's just gonna snap, you know, and kill her, and you know, and wrap her in plastic or something. But he doesn't, and obviously,
he's very expressive without having to say anything.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Mr. and Mrs. Livingston, we have kidnapped your son. Pay $100,000 or he dies. Signed, the Jews. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Who in their right mind is going to believe this note? It's the Jews, Martin. They're going to want more than $100,000. Think, man, think.
So we kind of get to, you know, the end of the first act where this relationship has grown, and we soon realise that in this time, Chloe's sort of gone to college, met new friends, and now she's going to prom. All the while, Jimmy doesn't seem to have aged at all. He kind of seems like he's at the beginning of this relationship while she's now ready to move on. And it just doesn't gel quite right. That she sort of brings her new date to Jimmy before they go. Well, and it's just like, why would you do this? Oh, okay, it's just so we can establish that this guy, Mark, is an absolute douchebag right off the get-go.
Well, yes. Yeah. Mark is a dick. He is the dick. That image of him leaning close to the bubble with that lit cigarette, you're just like, not only will that melt the plastic, but the nicotine will probably kill Jimmy. But I always feel that, I mean, the blossoming relationship, Chloe is in love with Jimmy, yes, but she doesn't admit it. And Jimmy is in love with Chloe, but obviously he doesn't admit it. And she is experiencing all this stuff, but she can't hang around waiting. So they are really, really close friends. And so bringing Mark to Jimmy is her way. I mean, obviously it doesn't happen right at the film, but it's her way, like in a lot of relationships, of the person saying, do you think this person's good for me? You know, and you can see Jimmy's face like, no, he's no good for you. But Jimmy, like we said, Jimmy's inexperienced. He doesn't know how to express those feelings of, look, he's a fucking dick. You know, all he wants to do is grab your ass and fuck you, which in a way is told as Jimmy, but in a nice way, I suppose.
In an innocent way, of course. So, yeah, you know, this sort of situation recurs in so many different people's lives that, of course, putting it in the film, you're going to empathise with Jimmy and Chloe, especially in this sort of situation, despite it being, you know, hammed up for extra laughs.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Jimmy sort of takes it badly and he gives her his gerbil back and just says, go, you know, I don't care.
Yeah.
Before he soon realizes that he's made a mistake. And then the real heart of the movie really begins with Jimmy's road trip across America to try and get to the wedding. Wait a minute. The wedding?
Yeah.
So she's getting married already? I mean, how long has he been trapped in this bubble for? It seems like she's moved on like 10 years from when they first met. Whereas Jimmy...
Yeah, I suppose time does mess up. I mean, the first time they meet, he says he's 16 and he's just gotten his guitar. I suppose when she's going to prom, you know, she's got to be at least 18, which probably Jimmy would be as well. And then getting married would probably be 2021. So they must be together at least a minimum of 5 years to establish this close-knit relationship of we are such good friends. But in a way, they're more than that. And, okay, yeah, it could be off-putting, but you kind of just slide by that. You want to get past all this because you want Jimmy to realize his mistake, to get inside his bubble and get out into the world, because obviously that's the big thing. Jimmy needs to experience the world. He needs to. And I love that part where you get the Rocky music. The Rocky music comes out. He builds his own little suit. He falls down the stairs. How the fuck the mum doesn't wake up when he's falling through the house, I don't understand. Because the dad wakes up and the dad just gives this little smirk like, go get her, boy. And he goes back to sleep. It's awesome.
I gotta say, the bubble suit design itself is pretty damn cool. I think it was designed by the creators of the Alien suit. So it kind of is durable and it works in the scenes. And I can't help but laugh when you see Jake Gyllenhaal or Jimmy just go flying and tumbling in it all the time. I'm like, how has he not broken his back or his legs just moving around in this bubble?
How does he go toilet in that
That was my first question. I was like, he's going for 3 days and I've not seen him pack any food. And I have no idea how he's supposed to take a dump in this thing.
Well, he has taken some supplies. He's taken his mum's homemade, gluten-free, sugar-free, ammonia-free, milk-free, meat-free, germ-free cookies with him. And I suppose that could really fuck up his insides and make him not poop.
Possibly. Even Danny Trejo asks him, how do you shit in that thing?
An astronaut? No way, Mom. I'm some kind of bubble boy.
How do you take a dump in that thing?
But that's not the first character that he would meet on his road trip. At first, he makes his way to the bus stop, where we're introduced to Zach how do you say his name? To Zach
Galifianakis?
Yeah, that's the one. The guy from the...
Really? I thought I recognised him, but I was like, wait, no, it can't be.
Yeah, it is. And he's actually got one of my favourite scenes, if not one of the best scenes in the entire film. The way that he just, as he is in more recent films, that deadpan, serious note, unblinking, unmoving, and it's just, the comedy's just notched up a gear when he's got that loud clicking noise of the intercom speaker. Just the timing, the sound effect, Zach and Jake Gyllenhaal, just this moment in the film is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, great comedy.
Oh, I'd like to go to Niagara Falls.
It's gonna be $260.
Oh, money. Oh. Money. How far will this get me?
Take a step back. That far.
So it turns out that, he can't get on the bus, and lo and behold, this really, really friendly group of people come and take Jimmy onto the bus.
I think they're a cult.
Before breaking into song.
Oh, God.
Bright and shiny. Bright and shiny. People all across the land come and join our happy hands. Always happy, never gay. Living dreams, okay. Bright.
Welcome to the fucking fun bus. Because at this point in the film, I'm just like, okay, do I hit the mute button, the fast forward button, or the eject button?
But that's the beauty of the beauty of this sequence with this cult. You know, is that obviously in America they have a lot of these things. I mean, they have a lot of these things all over the place. But you know, this is Jimmy's first encounter with them, and they're all like, they're all called Todd. Yeah. And they're all called Todd and Lorraine. And you know, and they're going to be going into heaven once they've given up all their life stuff. But they've got to find the chosen one, or if they don't find the chosen one, they will mutate and go to planet 41 or 42 if there's no space on 41. And obviously they come across Jimmy and they're singing to him and they're talking to him, and Jimmy realizes because all of Jimmy's intelligent thoughts have come from his mother. So when he says to these people, "Oh, you're a cult," in a really nice way, it's because his mother has told him, you know, these people are probably in a cult, and they throw him in a fucking desert. I question where the fuck Jimmy lives, because he's in this nice little 1950s American neighborhood. He gets to the end of the road, it starts to become a desert. They pick him up in the bus and throw him out into an even bigger desert. And then he ends up in Las Vegas. So it's like, what the fuck? Where the fuck are you?
Well, it's a road trip movie. And of course, the film is complete with plenty of montages of Jimmy going from point to point. And this is where we can see how dated the film is when we get music scores from Blink-182.
Oh god, yeah, that one song, it starts at the beginning and then they play that same fucking bit like 4 times in the movie, and I'm like, you literally had no other bands going on. But then I suppose in 2001, punk rock, Blink-182 were big with the kids, you know, and obviously this is what this film was being aimed at. So, you know, if we can put this film out and get Blink-182, then everybody will go buy the soundtrack and we'll make lots more money, I suppose. Yeah. But at least Blink-182 is fucking better than this fucking song.
Bright. It's shiny. Bright. It's shiny.
So this film has a lot of crude sexual humour in it. We've already had the erection stuff at the beginning. We've sort of had Jimmy's innocence at learning about his body, thanks to his mother. And when he's in Vegas, he looks over and there's a sign for virgins. And there's a couple of girls hanging around underneath it. And of course he has some inquisitive questions for Danny Trejo here.
Yeah, Danny Trejo is looking for wildfire.
Yes.
I mean, fucking Danny Trejo.
Machete. You know, even Danny Trejo said that he loved working on Bubble Boy because it's one of the only times in his acting career that he's not died in the film or had to shoot or stab anybody. Although, of course, he does still threaten to stab people in the film, but he doesn't actually.
You've got to cut the heart out of those vatos.
So it just goes to show that he can actually do comedy when the context works right.
I always find Danny Trejo is a phenomenal actor. I mean, he does get typecast in these bad boy images, but he pulls them off so well. And you know, when you see him first in this film, when Jimmy comes across him in this film, you're thinking, oh, you know, what's gonna go on? But their relationship really flourishes by the fact that, you know, Machete actually says, "I know where you are. You know, I've lost my wildfire. We need to get it." And there's a lot of times where Slim's words will appear in Jimmy's head and tell him to let go and be brave and, you know, just go with it, you know. And you think, okay, if there's anybody in this film you really should take advice from, it's fucking Machete.
Hell yeah.
You go for it.
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Go on, you want to win the money for our trip, don't you?
But what if I lose again?
You didn't get out of that bubble room to play it safe, did you?
You're right.
Go for it.
So we then get to a section of the film which I didn't at first quite know how to take. At first I was expecting to be really offended by some of the material in this film.
Yeah.
And that's when we get introduced to the freak show on the train. And a lot of these faces you'll recognise from other films or TV shows where they are playing, freaks or, very unfortunately disabled people.
Yeah.
And then we also get introduced to Mini-Me.
Fern Troyer. I mean, I like this section because, the first time I ever watched it, I thought it was a bit funny, but at the same time, it had a bit offensive the way that they were being portrayed. But realistic terms, people do try and force these freak shows on, the public. But when you see that really tall giant from, I recognise him mainly from House of a Thousand Corpses by Rob Zombie. He was also in Big Fish, and so I like this bit more now because you can see that despite their disabilities, they just want to be treated like everybody else, and they want to be actors. And there are a few normal actors, I suppose, I don't want to use that word, thrown in with them with just special makeup effects just to mix in with the group. And obviously they turn to Jimmy and they're like, Jimmy, you do not want to stay on this train because, if Dr. Freak comes along, he's going to own you. And Jimmy's just like, no, he doesn't. And it builds into a brilliant moment where he turns on Dr. Freak. They have this little fight, I suppose. He throws him across a fucking room and knocks him off a truck or something. And he shows them, look, you're just like me. You can leave. And they're like, okay, we're coming with you. He's like, no, I've got to do this thing on my own. Okay. But we're going to go to Niagara Falls anyway.
So, yeah, I expected it to be quite offensive when really it was played up for laughs, and it was light-hearted. It didn't really come across as being super offensive, and so I kind of wasn't too put off by the freak show scenes in the film.
No, but, this film is quite racist in parts.
Yeah, but again, I think I don't think it's overly so. I think it does walk the fine line.
It does walk the fine line. One of the closest characters you get to is the ice cream seller.
Wait a minute, he's also selling curry.
You came to my defense, and the law of karma requires me to return the favor. Well, who can resist ice cream, eh? I know I can. So, how may I be of service to you, my Ziploc friend?
I need to get to Niagara Falls by Saturday to stop Chloe from getting married.
Oh. I was thinking more along the lines of a free snow cone, but okay, Niagara Falls it is.
And I think he's a Hindu. Yeah. And Jimmy comes across him in this small cafe in a really shitty American town, which has got the
filled with rednecks.
Filled with rednecks who are being massively racist, and he saves him. But the fact that he's driving an ice cream van in the backwater desert parts of America, selling ice cream and curry, and you see that part with the kids. You've got this little white kid running along with money saying, I want ice cream, and then you've got this little Indian kid running along with money saying, I want curry, and you're like, what the fuck?
What a novel idea.
And the fact that he hits a cow. He hits a cow, and then he has to sit there and fucking
repent. Yeah, he's destroyed this most sacred animal.
He doesn't destroy it; the truck destroys it by driving through it.
It's just made even better when he's sat there and he's just praying or whatever, and another truck just comes along, and he gets roadkill splash all over his face, and it's just one of my favourite lines where he's just like, "I'm coming back as a cockroach."
I'm coming back as a cockroach.
I was expecting not to laugh because a lot of the time in this film I was sat there not laughing, actually trying not to laugh. But this film broke the ice for me, and very few comedies actually do that. I was beginning to feel that the jokes were going to be few and far between, but as the film went on, I found myself laughing more and more and more as I was sort of warming to this film and the humour.
The funny thing you say that is, I've seen this film a few times, and there is a lull, but I suppose just towards the end. Jimmy, he's being chased by everybody. He's being chased by the bikers who want to take on the freaks. The freaks are trying to help him get away from the cult. You know, the cult are obviously trying to free him from his bubble, and all he wants to do is get to Niagara Falls.
Well, his parents are also chasing him.
His parents are also chasing him, and they've got Dr. Freak with them as well. And so there is this, I suppose, this small bit where, you know, Jimmy is down on his luck, and he's just talked to Mark, played fabulously by Dave Sheridan, who you might recognise from some Red Hot Chili Pepper videos, and he played Officer Doofus in fucking Scary Movie. And Mark has basically just told Jimmy, look, you know, she doesn't love you. She's marrying me, and there's no way you could ever touch her anyway, and, you know, you couldn't have kids, so why don't you just fuck off home to your parents? And I suppose, thinking about it now, actually, I suppose that scene made me feel down. So maybe that's where the low came from, because I was just like, you know, and my mind completely went that I didn't think that Jimmy would actually get back up again, you know, and his parents came along, and everybody's still chasing him, and I'm just like, I kind of just want you to get there now. And it's brilliant, because just before that bit, I'd really laughed because he'd come across Pappy or Pippi, one of the brothers, and after this sequence, he would come across Pippi or Pappy, or the other brother. You know, they haven't spoken in 86 years because one brother stole Poonanny or Poontang from the other brother.
I love the fact that it censors every time he says Poontang. You get like the engine of the car firing or backfiring, and even when he gets on the plane later on, it censors the word Poontang all over again. I just think that was great. I found that humour brilliant. I absolutely laughed.
Poon! Huh? Chasing the game, ain't you? Last time I was in a commotion like that, it was all on account of Poon.
There is, the lull where his parents do eventually catch up with him and decide they're going to bring him home. And there's a very heartwarming scene, actually, where the father sat in the car with his son, and it looks like he's about to say something. And then he does actually say something. His only few lines of dialogue in the entire film, which is enough to convince Jimmy to get up and carry on and make his way to stop this wedding.
Yeah.
Which I have to say, stopping anybody's wedding on their wedding day is a really asshole-ish thing to do.
Yeah, I kind of felt this as well.
Seriously. Like,
as much as I hated Mark all the way through the film, the fact that not only did he just get dumped by the girl he's supposed to love, you know, in front of him and his whole entire family, you know, and the fact that as he's being dumped and, you know, Jimmy and Chloe are getting together, it turns out, spoilers for those of you who've never seen this film, it turns out that Jimmy actually does have an immunity system, and his mother has just been forcing him to stay in their house pretty much his whole life. And the fact that everybody fucking claps, like they're so happy these two people have finally got together, and you can see Mark in the background. I'm like, oh man, harsh.
At that moment, I'd completely forgotten about Mark. I was waiting for Jimmy to get up and strangle his mother to death. I was waiting for him to grab one of the pews and just bludgeon her to death for going, you bitch. You kept me isolated from the world completely.
Oh, know? But that just shows how brilliant of an actor Jake Gyllenhaal is, because, you know, he's lying there and he says, I'm not dead. And she's like, no. And he gets up and he's just got this look, like you said, he's got this look on his face like he's going to kill her. But he doesn't. And then he just gently turns to her and he says, Mum, I love you.
Aww.
And then he turns away to Chloe, because obviously he loves Chloe more. And the way the mother is still grabbing hold of his arm and the dad's having to drag her back, you know, like, let go.
I got many favourite scenes in the film, which I was surprised at. I do like slapstick comedy when it works.
Yeah.
And there's a few scenes in this film where Jimmy in his bubble suit is being bounced around ludicrously. Like, to the point where he would be dead. Or a broken mess. Yet, you know, it's played for laughs, so he kind of bounces along, gets back up, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal's wide-eyed, happy smile, happy-go-lucky attitude. You know, he just everything being fresh and new to him just fills him with excitement, which Jake Gyllenhaal carries so well. As a passive audience member, you kind of get wrapped up in his story, believable or not. One of my favourite scenes is going to be the Hindu guy on the roadside sort of getting splattered by cow debris and just sobbing at the state of affairs. I love the poon. I love every time it gets broken up. I love the sequence where he's sort of in the car with Pappy.
Yeah.
And he's telling him this story and Pappy's just hands on the wheel, just riding. And he's dead. And he's been driving all night, thankfully, on this straight road.
And he carries on driving. He carries on driving. It's not like the car crashes or anything. And it's the same with Pippi in the plane as well. Pippi dies, but the plane just carries on.
So, yeah, I love the gags that sort of reoccur throughout the film. And I guess the first time I really, really laughed in the film is with Swoosie Kurtz. Her delivery in this film is exceptional. And when she's reading the bedtime stories to Jimmy, and when she tells him the story about Pinocchio who touched the whore next door and died, it's just like, end of story.
Yeah, go to bed. And I love the fact that the camera's placed in a way that you can see Jake Gyllenhaal's face like he's holding the quote up to his neck like, oh shit, I'm going to fucking die.
And then Pinocchio came out of his plastic bubble, touched the filthy little whore next door, and died. The end.
Ooh, baby. My favourite scenes, I mean, apart from that tiny little lull towards the end of the film, the whole film is just brilliantly done for me. The first time he gets a fucking erection and he whacks it with a baseball bat, and then the interaction between him and his mother, you know, and she's making him take the Pledge of Allegiance, and every now and again she keeps like looking down and then looking back up and all shocked. That's really done. The first time he meets Chloe and she comes into the house and he tells her, oh yeah, you're the whore next door because that's what my mum calls you. And she's like, no, I'm the bitch. And he's like, yeah, you're totally a bitch. Totally, bitch, yeah.
Where did you hear that?
My mom, she teaches me everything.
Well, really, she got it wrong. I'm actually more of a bitch than a whore.
A bitch. Oh, yeah. A bitch, absolutely a bitch.
Any scenes with Danny Trejo, you know, him on his own, him running around with a knife, him and his gang of bikers. The twist at the end that Wildfire is Jimmy's mum. I mean, fucking hell. It's just, Danny Trejo just delivers brilliantly all of his scenes. But my all-time favourite scene has to be the mud wrestling match. Not only has this got Stacy Keibler, yes, Stacy Keibler from WCW and WWE in a bikini, mud wrestling Jimmy in his bubble suit. But it's just this mad delivery between Jimmy and the host of the show about $500.
You want $500?
Yes, I would like $500.
You want $500?
Yes, I want $500!
And again, that joke would reoccur later in the film as well. I, interestingly enough, will have to recommend Bubble Boy. This is a film that it's another one of those films that split critics and audiences.
Yeah.
Critics were really unfavourable to the film. Again, a lot of people boycotted it and sort of saw this as a trashy movie which sort of fitted in with all the other sort of teen trashy comedies that were coming out. Whereas the audience for this film gave it a lot more praise than the critics.
Yeah.
And I can see why. Jake Gyllenhaal is fantastic.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a brilliant actor. The supporting cast in this film really works. The road trip formula always works in a comedy film. And the way that Blair Hayes has sort of pieced this film together, it's only like 90 odd minutes running time.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly quick. And the film goes at a breakneck pace with one joke after another. Not all of the jokes work, that's a given.
Yeah.
But the ones that do will make you laugh out loud. And so this film it's wacky, but it's gentle in its nature, and it's imaginative. This fantasy world of Jimmy exploring the world for the first time. You're going to have a fun time watching this film. So yeah, I do recommend Bubble Boy.
I definitely recommend it as well. It's, it is nothing new. It's that poignant, road trip love story where he is going to get the girl at the end. But it's fucking Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I said at the beginning, I find it very hard not to watch stuff that he's in. And then when I do watch it, I try not to fucking just praise the movie just because his performance. Him just experiencing stuff for the first time. I've just literally remembered the first time Jimmy experiences dog shit. And it still makes me fucking smile. Him screaming $500 is fucking brilliant. It's just really well done. Like Gary said, all of the supporting cast for Jake Gyllenhaal work really well, elevate his character. The jokes, some work, some don't, but the ones that do will make you smile. If you can get through this whole film without fucking laughing, you're already dead.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Sometimes when the honesty is too